One of the highly praised third-party controller companies that I have never gotten around to trying has been GameSir. According to many people, they truly are the Sir of games. However, fairly recently I came across a controller of theirs that is very much inspired by the PS1 DualShock controller. And I am quite a sucker for the DualShock controllers. Up till the PS5, they have been my favorite. I'm your cool Uncle Marissa, and today we are going to take a look at the GameSir Tegenaria Lite. Tegenaria Lite? Of course, we will be sitting down and really getting hands-on with this fellow, but just a few words beforehand. So when I saw this, I thought it looked very lovely. I really liked the color combination, and they actually have one that's orange and white. So when I did email them, I didn't specify, and they didn't ask me to specify a color, and I thought that was for the best because otherwise I think I'd be really stuck picking. But they sent me the gray one, and it's quite lovely, just as it was in the pictures. And it is a whopping 20 bucks. This is a $20 controller. That's an incredible price. And if you couldn't tell by me noting that it is an incredible price, this controller is amazing value for its money. That's the spoiler alert. However, it wasn't exactly what I thought it would be. The DualShock controllers, I feel like, have a point of contention. Again, I'm only going till PS4. A lot of people find them too small for their hands, but luckily, I do have smaller hands, and that's been a focus of a lot of my controller reviews. I have long fingers, but I have thinner palms than many people. Shout out to one of my Discord server nerdviews who could probably put his entire hand around a tree and have his fingers touch. But this is not a tiny controller like the controller that it is aesthetically mimicking. It is in fact something that I think would be quite suitable for people who are looking for a larger controller, especially if you want one with the PlayStation aesthetic. And if I just describe you, this might be your lucky day because I will be giving away this controller to a viewer. So just stay tuned on how to enter. And if you are not in the US, I would recommend maybe not entering because I would have to collect the cost of shipping, and shipping is going to probably be more than the cost of the controller itself. But I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your mom. I'm your uncle. Let's get to it and take a look at it. We're going to look at the ergonomics, and we're also going to compare it to the DualShock controller, as well as another controller that seeks to mimic the physical silhouette of the DualShock controller. Let's go. All right, and here we have the controller in the flesh. You'll notice there's a bunch of other controllers on my desk. It's because I wanted to do a quick comparison both to the PlayStation controllers that inspired this design, as well as another controller that was inspired by the PlayStation design. So just off the bat, we see that I don't know if you guys feel the same, but when I saw it, I was like, it's like someone went into a character creator on like a video game, and the default was the PlayStation controller, and then they just slid all the sliders to like wide. It feels very wide set, and I think that's partly due to the fact that these two capture and home buttons are really tightly set in the center, and then there's all this blank space. But otherwise, this is the retro gray type color that's supposed to be inspired by the PlayStation 1. We have a bump of color here on the M button, and we also have some taps of pastel color in the center of the face buttons. I really like these colors. I would have loved for this button to be in these colors because right now as it stands, this feels very out of place color-wise. I would have either gone with the same dark gray as these buttons, or I would have loved this pastel pop. We also have the share and menu button, and we have these triggers, bumpers, and two mappable buttons at the back. Of course, it has Hall effect sensors. Everyone has Hall effect sticks these days, and then I do want to talk about like the feel of the controller and the buttons and everything after a quick comparison with other controllers. Now I really thought I had a DualShock controller in gray, but I don't. I just have the original Sony controller in gray. And the only thing I want to show here is the color comparison, oft imitated, not always nailed. So the retro gray actually is not a kind of one for one. Wow, this controller is really dirty. I should clean it. I always clean controllers, but I must have just like thrown this in the box. There's a warmth to the PlayStation gray, very slight warmth, ignoring the warmth caused by the dirt buildup from whoever had this before me. But this is a very cool gray. So I think that knowing this, if I had to pick, I would have gone for the white and orange one because it's not really a clone. I think it could have also been neat if they colored the legends to match the colors on the PlayStation controller. But that's all aesthetic. And then comparing it in terms of form factor, we have an actual DualShock controller. I really want a DualShock 2, the PS2 controller in this color, but I've settled with my blue one but this color is gorgeous. First, you will notice that it is actually not significantly wider in size. It is just fatter, if that makes sense. So you can see that the arms are a little bit thicker and longer. And another thing that is pretty noticeable is that with the regular DualShock controller, the D-pad is sort of indented in. It's like they hit tab and then they put it in. Whereas on this, it's all the way to the left. Also, another inspiration that is missing is the bumps for the trigger buttons. These are flat, and the other important thing is that the joysticks on the DualShock are quite centered and quite close to each other. Whereas on this guy, they're pretty far apart in comparison, and they are kind of set a little higher up. They're also smaller, which adds to that feeling of distance. So it's definitely not a clone, definitely an inspired by. And so going to the inspired by, I have the 8BitDo Pro 2, which I have not upgraded to the Hall Effect version of this. However, I haven't had any issues with drift. This was my favorite controller prior to getting the 8BitDo Xbox Mini controller. That is absolutely hands down my favorite now. But until then, this was my favorite because it's the one that came closest to the PlayStation design. And so just comparing these, the D-pad on this is a lot more, well, it's D, it's not separated the way that the Sony ones are, nor does it have the illusion of separation the way that the GameSir one does. These are Game Boy buttons. I put these in myself. Otherwise, the only other huge difference is it is slightly smaller. I think size-wise, it is closer to the regular DualShock, but it has the back buttons, and the bumper and trigger on this one are particularly wonderful in my opinion. Very difficult to beat. Also, this is a different price point, so I'm not doing this as a comparison between the two. This is just simply a design comparison. These are wider than the 8BitDo ones, which is actually more true to the DualShock controller. I mean, we can do a quick weight thing too. This one is the lightest of them all. It doesn't feel light in a toy-like or cheap fashion. It just feels light. It feels like a $20 controller probably would. It feels a bit heftier than that, in fact, if you are going to think of it as a $20 controller. The reason that I think this is heavier probably has a lot to do with the metal motor brushings inside it. And this one is also a pretty hefty guy. That is actually the one thing, is that this is it's a pretty heavy controller, heavier than the DualShock controller. And we're sort of just gonna focus on the GameSir from here. I want to just talk about, first off, comfort. So the big draw for me for the DualShock controllers, at least until DualShock 4, the DualShock 5 looks very different than anything I've seen before, and I haven't had the opportunity to ever hold one. The fact that guys with like really big hands tell me it's super comfortable makes me think maybe it's not gonna be, it's gonna be the first DualShock that is not for me. But this is perfect. This is, you know, I am biased because I grew up with the PS2, but it's just such a perfect fit. Like, you know, my hands reach the D-pad really easily. It reaches the face buttons, and then very quickly I can go onto the joysticks and pretty, you know, fairly reasonably have a good range of motion without feeling too stretched. I've also always loved the angled arm on the DualShock 2 and the DualShock. There's just a lot of room to hold it however you feel comfortable. I don't know why I did this. Who's holding it like this? I feel like I could see this in an ad or like a movie where the kid's supposed to be playing a game and there's nothing on the TV and nothing's plugged in. Anyway, so comparing that grip to the GameSir. So with this, when I first took it out of the box and I held it, I was like, oh, this is a DualShock inspired controller for people with big hands. And if that's you and you would like to own this lovely little fellow, let me know your favorite PlayStation game in the comments. Doesn't have to be PS1, can be any generation. But yeah, it immediately, I'm like, ooh, these are too beefy for me. Not bad, just beefy for me. Can feel a bit of a stretch going to the sticks, and maybe it's because they're smaller. When you're holding something large and, you know, your hands can't really entirely grip them well, it feels like you're holding a lot, even if you can reach everything. But speaking of these joysticks, they feel fine in terms of gameplay, and I really like they have this grip around them, which other joysticks do too. I think everyone's essentially using the same Hall effect joysticks. They're all these like pretty small Joy-Con kind of looking designs, but the grip on the side, on the rim, is really, really nice. It's very grippy, so even if it does feel like a bit of a stretch, I don't feel like it's gonna slip. If you have a problem also getting sweaty hands while playing, I think these will definitely help. And this isn't a controller that I pick up and I'm like, oh, this is gonna need stick grips, thumb grips, whatever you wanna call them, because it's quite grippy. The only reason to put thumb grips on it would be if you need a larger surface, but otherwise I really like this. I don't know how they hold up. Different people also have different skin excrements. Sorry, that's gross, but you know, you see people whose controllers just, all the rubber just melts away after a few play sessions, and then you have other people where it's like, that's not a problem at all. I've not had that happen personally, for example. So I can't speak to your oil production. Then we get to the face buttons, and the game I used to test this controller was Blasphemous. An interesting thing with this, the difference with this and a Sony controller, is that these are concave, and you know, the Sony ones are flat, and I really like that. I really like the concave because I really like being able to rest my thumbs on this. This is actually really wonderful for games that do use the D-pad as opposed to the sticks, because it's just so comfortable to put your fingers here, They're very much within reach, again, because they're on the far sides. So even if you do have small hands, smaller than mine, these will be within reach, because even if your hands are like here, like your hands would have to be really small to not be able to sit in this concave. And so yeah, you have pretty easy access to the buttons. The buttons, they do feel a little bit hollow, but again, that's one of those things where I'm like, this is a $20 controller, and I think that it's totally fine for that. There's no obnoxious sound. They're not like clicky, they're just regular buttons. And the D-pad, I really like the D-pad. So it has this concave middle, and you know, it has the sort of separated directions that the Sony controllers do, but it is not hidden underneath. It is all one piece. And it is definitely much better than the Sony DualShock D-pad. It feels very clear when you press it. I was crouching in Blasphemous, and you know, you press down and you crouch. It's not really, it wasn't giving me false diagonals, but if I rocked it back and forth, I was able to input a diagonal. So really fantastic D-pad. I'm actually really in love with this D-pad. It was kind of the thing that won me over when playing with it, and it's the thing that makes me want to give a glowing recommendation to it, because what a lovely D-pad. Just I could be padding this D all day. That was rough. Bumpers and triggers. The bumpers, the click, you might be able to hear. They also sound a bit hollow. I just don't think there's a lot going on in here. But again, $20 controller. I feel like the D-pad already earns that price tag anyway. It exceeds that price tag. I've tried much more expensive controllers whose D-pads are nowhere near as good. And the analog triggers are very nice. They have some distance, nothing crazy. The sort of tension feels very good. And they have that little lip, which is lovely for your hands to sit in. So this is oh, right, and then the back buttons. I always forget about the back buttons. There they are. They're just like any other back button that's mappable. You know, they're clicky, they're wide. This is a really nice controller. For $20, this is really great value. The ergonomics are really wonderful. And while I think this is more suited to people with larger hands than mine, even if I keep this controller, I would be totally happy using it for platformers, Metroidvanias, things that primarily use the D-pad, because it's really nice. I love the way my hands sit in it. It does have some hollow plasticky bits, but for the price tag, that is to be expected. The rumble works fine and feels good as well. And we have quite a long cord. So you shouldn't have too much trouble with that if you're just sitting in front of your PC or your laptop. The only nitpick I have with the cord is, since getting my 8BitDo Xbox Mini controller, is that has a removable USB-C cable. This is not removable. And so, you know, I can't speak to the longevity of this controller. I've heard wonderful things from GameSir. They have that 1-year warranty banner on their website. So in good faith, I would assume that it holds up. And in good faith, I can assume that if it doesn't hold up, they will be there to help out. However, this is the one point where I'm like, this could be a point of failure. This could fray, and you know, most people don't have soldering experience. Just like off the bat, I don't think you should be in charge of having to fix every point of failure in every product that you pay money for. So I would love to see if they ever do another iteration of this to have the wire be removable, just for longevity, and so that there's, you know, less waste in the world. And hey, you could even switch it out for like a different color or a longer or shorter cable, depending on what you're doing. Otherwise, absolutely fantastic controller for $20. For me, I would say I would consider this a budget version of this guy. This is, I think, at least twice the price. It's between $40 to $60. I'll throw it up here once I check the actual price. But if this is the kind of form factor you want, I feel like these two are more similar to each other than either is to a DualShock controller. Yeah, that's that on that. What do you think? It's a good controller, right? It's a bit bigger than I expected, but it also has a lot of features that I didn't expect that like really lend to a comfortable experience, like those concave face buttons and the concave D-pad, both the centers. Of course, the elephant in the room perhaps is that they are wired. I know a lot of people don't like wired controllers, and that's totally valid. I used to not, but honestly, I found that they don't hinder me. I don't have to worry about charging them, and their cords have come a long way. I feel like there was a point where controllers that were wired just had really short cords as well, especially when they were third party as opposed to first party. But these are some really long cords, so you know, you can sit pretty far away. But I'm happy to file that away under my other unpopular opinions, such as preferring rechargeable AA's to USB-C and preferring no lights to RGB lights in my keyboards. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to GameSir for sending me this controller for review. It's been an absolute delight, and I hope that it will soon delight one of you as well. And I will pick someone for that by this date, because I don't know when I'll post this. A huge thank you to my Ko-fi members. You guys keep this channel going. And if you are interested in joining my Ko-fi, well, what does that even get you? It gets you monthly game reviews on stuff I've played in the past month that I've completed, as well as occasional write-ups and videos on other modding related things that I have done. You are also welcome to join my Discord. We've got a swell community over there, and I'm usually hanging out there as well. So, you know, if you're ever like, I've got a question, can you help me with something? I can't promise to be able to solve your problem, but that's a much better way to ask me than the comments. And of course, if you like videos like this, please like and subscribe. It hurts right here every time. All that being said, I've been your cool Uncle Marissa, and don't forget that you are always welcome at Cool Uncle's house, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.